We're going to talk about Star Citizen today. We're doing the Inside Star Citizen River's Edge Winter 2021. And we're going to talk about it and watch it and see what's going on
in Star Citizen
in the realm of Star Citizen here today.
Intricate planets. And the way that we've been able to do that is instead of storing each vertex of the planet like you would in a traditional level editor, we store height maps and other data about the planet.
This game's so beautiful, man.
Chunks of the planet around the player, but it did introduce the problem of us not being able to edit individual vertices of the terrain. That is where the terrain modification system comes in.
This game is so beautiful. The one things I would really love about this game is we're at the point where a lot of the moons and planets are fleshed out with lush areas, great areas. But the fact of the matter is, on a lot of these moons, there's only like a couple spots. There's not enough travel time to like take out a buggy or a bike or anything like that, you know, like the rover or any kind of ground vehicle to go from one point to another. They're too far apart that you have to fly there. It's kind of like it takes you out of that immersion a little bit. And I hope somewhere down the line, by like next year, we'll have something good.
The terrain modification system works by placing modifiers across the planet. And when we build each chunk of the terrain, we check to see if any of the vertices intercept one of our bounding boxes. And if we do, that modifier applies a function to the Z coordinate of that vertex to offset it to a specific place that we choose.
That's pretty cool.
So for example, we've got here a smoothing area. We can move this around. We can see that it is smoothing out the ground. We can raise it or lower it. We can change its size and so on. And here I've got a crater which we could flip and turn into a push-pull. We can change the scale and so on. And that's all happening by intercepting the mesh building system and applying offsets based on a function to...
Oh, so that's how they make those... Oh, that's pretty cool.
We can use this on any scale we like. So from a very small scale like this to a much bigger scale like this over here. So if I decide I want to place my outpost over here, the first thing I do is I put a smoothing area down. I integrate that into the terrain so that it looks good. I can play with all the different settings to tweak the roll
so that's how they're...
of the smoothing area. And then I can go in and I can put my outpost down. And we can see that that's
a pretty...
very flat. There's no clipping with the terrain. And it all looks very natural and embedded instead of kind of like...
standard outposts that we have. I kind of like the fact that they're reusing a lot of this assets to make things faster and smoother. Obviously, when the game gets going, I hope to get different types of outposts and different layout of outposts because they're kind of like the same. They're samey, but at the same time, it's necessary to progress the game forward.
So we can integrate our smoothing areas even more in with the terrain by using a noisy edge instead of just having a perfectly spherical one. So this smoothing area here has a noise function applied to its radius, so we get this kind of like crinkly effect. And when I embed that into the ground, we don't see an obvious circle around where our outpost is. Instead, we get more natural looking crinkle around the edge of our smoothing area. The reason that we have both of these modifiers is sometimes you want to make it clear that humanity has come and shaped the terrain to be a certain way, and sometimes you just want the convenience of flat ground.
There's my ship!
Like it's
dude, I love the character so much. Look at this! Like, you can't tell me that this is not a beautiful game. You can't.
So using the same modification system, we can actually add water meshes to the vertexes. The first thing I did on this was a way to place river paths, because you can't start modifying the terrain before you know where the water's going to flow. So I've got this river placement tool here, where we're going to be able to...
So I've been super, like, not into this kind of thing. Like, this whole, like, background stuff. This is where the flack of this game gets, in my opinion, is they give you so much detail on what's going on and what's behind the scenes, and then you have a high level of people like, it's taking too long. It's taking too long. The game is never going to finish. And then you just, like, look at these things of the tools they have to build by hand from scratch to make this a reality, where other games, generally, they have been reusing the same engine for the same period of time. The engine is what the engine is, and there's no modification to said engine. They're constantly making, like, every time that you hear them talk about something interesting, they're like, oh, we made this brand new tool. This tool never existed in the engine. So here's the brand new tool. This is what we have. and then it's just like it goes from there. And the scope and scale of what they're trying to accomplish is so vast. 2 games at one time, it's gonna take some time. It's very frustrating for a lot of people to see something, pay money for something, and realize I don't have it. But they ask you to support, and it's patience, you know what I mean? We just got to take it one step at a time to realize that this is the kind of thing that it's taking time due to the fact that there's external things at play, but it's open development. We are along the way. We have all the information. We're not other games that basically say, hey, game's coming out. Game's coming out. And then they're like, where are you at in the game? It's coming out though. You'll see it when you see it. You know what I mean? Like you don't know their pitfalls and their issues they have. So
come out of the ground. So I'm going to place that here. And you can see that it automatically starts working out the path of where the water would flow. Now it does this in steps. It looks at the direction that the water is coming from. It takes a step in that direction and works out an arc of points. And then it chooses the point on that arc that is the lowest, moves there, and then continues on to the next step until you get this nice flowing path.
Jeez.
Now, over here,
never thought of
a
that.
white dot, and that is because the lowest point on the arc was in fact higher than the water started with. And if you look at a river, you'll notice water doesn't travel up. So here, the point is white because we're going to have to erode down the path under here for the water to have traveled to this point. We can't have it flow up on the terrain.
That's true.
So once we're happy with our river path, we can look at adding any contributing springs. So for example, we might have a bit more water flow coming from there, or I might choose to have a bit more water flow coming from there. And then we can score and clean the rivers. What this does is it works out a more detailed path between the nodes that the river's going to take. And it also works out how much water is going to be passing through each point. So you see, if I click on this node here, we can see the size is 5. If I go a little bit downstream, where there's going to be more rainwater collecting into the stream, the size is 17, and that will increase all the way down to the bottom where the river ends. Once we're happy with the river system as a whole, we can place the geometry modifiers. Now the first thing this is going to do is we've placed some brown decals down to show that the terrain is changed, and we've actually modified the terrain to show the path of the river. As you can see, if I just turn these off, as you can see, we've got a deep trench where the river is flowing, and then banks around the river.
Oh wow, that did it automatically? That's pretty dope.
Water. So let's add in some water.
Oh my.
This is work in progress. This is just using the sea mesh, but it just to prove the concept that we can have water in the basis of our rivers. But it still doesn't look quite right. If you look at a river in the wild going through any ecosystem, whether it be a forest, or some fields, or a desert, you'll notice that the terrain around it is different, and that's because the water influences the ecosystem. We get more vegetation and growth around places where there are water. So in order to make this look as convincing as possible, we're going to experiment with adding more foliage and more ecosystem changes around the rivers. So this is just a programmer's take on this, and no artists have had any say in what I'm doing here.
Oh wow, this is all
by borrowing a slightly more lush preset from a different planet, we can see that we can create this really effective look around the rivers with far more trees and ground cover, just to really sell the idea that this is a river that has been here for thousands of years and is flowing through the hills of Microtech. So now that we've added in this ecosystem around the river, it really sells and looks like a river flowing through the hills of Microtech. This looks much more like something that's been here for thousands of years, instead of just a bit of water that's trickling down some hills. Obviously, when the artists take a pass at this, they'll be able to get some much more suitable foliage and vegetation, instead of having this awkward merge between snowy trees and beautiful lush foliage. But the fact that we've got the tools to do this, and we can do it procedurally just with a few clicks, means that these rivers could be cropping up soon on the planets. As a reminder, this is a working prototype, not a finished product, and these are all engineer art choices rather than artist art choices. I can imagine someone screaming at me for the fact that we've got some beautiful kind of tropical trees here versus some snowy pines in the backdrop. But
okay, you gotta tell me. Look at, come on.
The fact that we can modify the ecosystem around these rivers means that we're going to be able to.
The fact that he did that so quickly.
Looking ecosystems.
Now, like I said, we just got to flesh out the world, you know? It looked so good. They did a good job with that. And that's just the first pass? I'll take it.
The terrain modification tool is just one more way the Planet Tech team continues to create new technologies that help our artists and designers create assets for the Star Citizen universe better and more quickly than ever before. Now, citizens that have been around for a while know that January is planning season, where developers get together, review the lessons of the year before, and plan out their efforts for the one ahead. Now, by the time that this airs, that process is still in full swing for many teams. But we took the opportunity to chat with some of the folks that participated in this year's Combat Summit to get a sense of where their conversations went and check in before they go heads down and the process of prototyping begins.
So the theme of this year's Combat Summit was really how we give the player control over all the systemic features we have in the game.
What we want is an environment where things make sense.
Correct.
Choice allows players to approach different missions in different scenarios in different ways, and even the same scenario in different ways, which really expands the feel and the options players.
I love that ship.
The main reason why we created a Combat Summit was to include more people from multiple departments.
That's the Hawk
that have a stake or an interest.
Hawk is such a good ship, underrated.
It
my
helps,
opinion.
Like gather outside data into one kind of focus point.
We can kind of figure out the core problems that we have, and also, you know, to kind of come up with solutions for those problems.
It's very important to go away and come up with different solutions, test them out, see which ones are fun, see which ones play well with other features.
I'll get Hurricane.
We're so successful.
Come on now.
We're in a good position to go forward into this year's summit.
Building upon the work we did in the last one.
In this year's Combat Summit, we talked a lot about combat geometry, which is how ships fly around each other during combat, how they're going to fight each other.
One of the ways we wanted to improve the current flight model was with the addition of capacitors, which will make the actions players take during a dogfight more meaningful and have more of an impact on what they see and what they do. And capacitors really do that by sort of capping some of the behaviors as well as giving you an instant visual result and instant flight result.
We went into weapons and the different behaviors of weapons and how they interact with shields and ballistic armor.
We're not aiming for like a meta build gameplay, right? We want each weapon to feel different and to have a different role in space combat.
And then to add to this, we're discussing how we kind of move the roles forward on the ships and make the most of the features that we have to, you know, kind of realize the roles on ships and for those to mean more in the PU.
Yeah.
You know, as far as what choices you make of what ship you want.
I'm very excited to get some of those sort of ironed out and to get those feelings of those ships so that you know without looking at the label of the ship that you're definitely in something like a light fighter.
We're just focusing on how to make those roles mean more to the player so they can make more meaningful, informed decisions.
So it was a really important...
That should help a lot for combat.
And we have to move them together forward in one kind of, you know, line really, because that gives us the best kind of maneuverability moving forward to understand really the impact of these changes as well.
Okay.
So now we have a big bunch of work in front of us, right? We have action points, what we want to do. So the next step for us is prototyping.
A big risk when you're prototyping several solutions is the fact that one might not fit with another solution.
What we cannot
I was using a mining laser? You kidding me?
So when we're testing,
shout out in the comments if that's actually something that you've done before.
To make sure that we're picking the right solution and that fits together as a
using a mining laser on the ship.
Now we'll learn more about the resulting new features that arise from the Combat Summit throughout the remainder of this year as they're being developed. So
Jack, can I show you one more thing that I've been messing around with?
Sure, Will. But just don't get me in trouble.
So here I've put together our grenade launcher with a crater modifier just to see what we could do with this. And now when I fire a grenade launcher, we get a nice little dent in the terrain where I fired it. We can essentially go and create some craters. obviously this is me messing around. This isn't something that's in game, but
Okay.
just something that I've been having a little bit of fun with. Hopefully we'll be able to use something like this in the future, but no promises. This is just a bit of fun.
So what did we learn about this week? Well, we learned the plateaus can be a good thing.
You can't
when
show
they
that
allow
off and then
designers to
basically
place
be like,
outposts anywhere
we're not
they
gonna
want.
get that.
That a river
We're not
may
gonna
run
get that.
through it, but the next step is to always replace that programmer art. That each summit builds upon the successes of the last, and that the work of honing Star Citizen's
I think it was a
combat
good episode.
experience continues. We're inside.
We're gonna
Star
probably do
Citizen,
this every
I'm
week.
Jared Huckabee.
Every week,
See you all
guys.
next week.
We'll do this every week. We're gonna run this through and do a little talk about this every single week and kind of give our thoughts on what's going on. Ad lib, throw some things that are about the development and whatnot that we know about. But I think it's pretty dope. Not too much information, not anything world beating, but it was a good solid episode. What'd you guys think? Hope you guys had a good time, and we'll see you in the next video. You know, we'll talk more about it. Let me know what you think. We're doing the stream things. It's gonna be somewhere on the screen, somewhere like that. So come follow out, come check me out and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of like this.